Hello, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about in this video, but I'm probably just going to talk about my day, to be honest, and it hasn't been the greatest for this, but yeah, for some reason, for a specific reason. Well, this is what I'm going to put it down to anyway. Well, to start off with, I wasn't feeling very good this morning. I wasn't feeling like physically very well. I just felt a little bit down. Um, so that wasn't very good. But I got some paracetamols last night from my nana's house, but they had caffeine in them, and I was like, oh, it's alright, there won't be a lot of caffeine in them. So I took a couple last night for my ankle because it's still fucked. I'll show you. Got all that and all that. So yeah, still got sprained ankle, so I've been on painkillers for the last week, and yeah, I know paracetabol's not really that strong, but I don't want to be on my ass. I just want to be able to sort of function properly. So anyway, these paracetamols had caffeine in. I took two last night, and I'd had like a Subway or something, so that's probably why I didn't feel very good today. I took a couple this morning at 8 o'clock, and I was sat in my lesson. I had philosophy first thing, and I felt a bit sick, and I just felt, I don't know, like disengaged, and like I couldn't really, like I just couldn't enjoy what I was doing, and I felt a bit agitated and frustrated. But there's only like 60 milligrams of caffeine in each of these tablets, and then obviously I took two, so that's 120 milligrams, and this was like 2 hours before, so I don't even know if I really can put it down to that, but I think I've got some sort of caffeine sensitivity, because I generally do have adverse reactions to that sort of substance, well, drug, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so I get through that lesson, and then I'm going to my other lesson, and I'm just sat there. And at the start, I had 15 minutes to spare, so I was just sat in the room by myself, and I was just trying to do some like meditation, some like breathing exercises and stuff. And it momentarily sort of brought me back, but I couldn't get rid of this sort of agitated feeling which was sort of inside. I thought I didn't feel like it was expressible, like with words, or I didn't feel like I would be able to alleviate it by doing anything in particular. And I tried in the afternoon by drawing, and eventually it did subside, but after some rather unwanted events. Um, yeah, so my lesson started at 11:15, my sociology lesson. I was due to take the next doses of paracetamol at 12 o'clock. So I hadn't actually realised that it was the caffeine tablets at this point, that it was the paracetamol with the caffeine in at this point that were making me feel down. But then after I took the second set in that day, so that would be 240 milligrams of caffeine. But the first lot had probably worn off a bit, but I'm not quite sure about that. And I take iron tablets as well, and I don't know whether it was something to do with the mixture that I had, but I was sat in sociology, and I don't know, it was only about 15 or 20 minutes after I'd taken the tablets. I was already feeling like agitated and fidgety and restless throughout the lesson, but I was able to keep it in check, and it just eventually got to the point where like every single sound in the classroom was amplified. It literally felt like everything that was happening. So there's people talking, I could hear someone coughing, and then the teacher was talking, and then there was other people having conversations that weren't relevant, and I could hear every little sound, but it merged into this big like mess of a noise in it, and I was trying to concentrate on my work, but then I was worrying about exams, and everything was just happening at once, and it felt like a complete and utter overload. So I tried some techniques to just sit there and get through it and make it go away, but I knew that I reached a point where it was like no turning back. Like I couldn't do anything to do it. I felt physically ill. I felt mentally extremely unstable, and I was sat like with my hand like that, and I don't know, I was like doing something. I was like banging my leg on the floor, like you know when you shake it like that. But it was like extremely bad, and my teacher said she noticed that. I ended up whispering to the person next to me. I was like, I'm going to sit in the room over there. So I went out of the classroom, and I just sat in the room by myself, and I just had like a complete and utter meltdown, like one of the worst ones I've had in ages. It was intense. I remember a teacher walked in when it had started, and I was like, I hit the desk a few times, but I didn't punch it with my knuckle. I punched it with the side of my hand, so it didn't risk breaking anything or going to hospital again. And I was I was stamping my foot, and everything was like unstoppably intense. I didn't hear any people. It was just things. And I was just like crying, and then a teacher walked in because I think she must have heard it happening. She was I think the politics teacher it was, and she doesn't actually teach me, but she came in, she was like, "You alright?" And I couldn't talk to anybody for I don't even know how long it went on for. It must have been about 10 minutes before I actually started talking, and then some of my other friends came in, and I couldn't even get my head off the desk. And then afterwards, my sociology teacher came in, and it's like I just like blown myself out like completely. Like I just had a complete like no energy left. It was so weird. Like, and I was just sat there with my head in my arms, like just like literally feeling like shit, like just feeling completely depressed. And I don't know. It never normally happens that intensely unless there's some sort of drugs or alcohol involved. And in this case, I think it was the caffeine that sort of amplified it. Like, because that... Oh, my cat opened the door. I thought I should have that. Because it's normally, like, it can happen, but, like, nowhere near as intense. Nowhere near as, like, uncontrollable or unmanageable. And then afterwards, and I'm going to still put this down to the caffeine as amplifying it. But I was basically, I felt like I didn't feel completely sane. I felt, I don't know, like a little bit, like not even in this world. Like I knew I was in the world, but everything was completely different. I was looking around, and everything was like brighter, and I could see like when if I looked at a light and then I looked away, it's like I could see an afterprint, but it would stay there for ages, and it would keep moving around in my vision. So I guess it was a little bit hallucinatory, but yeah. And then I ended up, like, I could feel my heart beating pretty fast, and I could feel like my hands were cold and sweaty, and I kept feeling my arm and my leg going numb. So then I got into the mindset, and this lasted about an hour and a half to 2 hours, that I was going to have a heart attack, or that I was having a heart attack. And to be honest, I think it was just anxiety. But obviously, if you've ever had a panic attack or some sort of anxiety attack, then you know that there's not really much difference between feeling the mental symptoms and the physical symptoms of that, and perhaps a serious health condition, and especially when it's gone completely over the edge like that. And so I got convinced about that for ages. I was walking around, I was talking to myself. I don't even know. It was just so crazy. Like I just literally felt like I was going crazy or going insane. And anyway, so I talked to my friends a little bit. I tried to do some drawing, and I've been doing some more of it just now. Don't really know what it is, to be honest. Just like a drawing. So I tried to draw my feelings, seeing as I was struggling to like speak about them. And I had my tutor group, so that's basically the way you do one-on-one with your home tutor, so I was sort of glad I had it then. I went to see him, I told him what happened, I told him how I was feeling, I told him that I thought I was having a heart attack. So what he did was, he went through the symptoms with me, he told me it's extremely unlikely, which is understandable, but, you know, I genuinely believed that I was like going to die or something, and yep. And then, so we discussed that, and I actually felt better after talking to him. So yeah, I felt a lot better after talking to him. I was in there for about 20 minutes, and then afterwards I had philosophy revision in the afternoon, and we were doing about Jesus, and it was quite interesting, and it was a nice distraction, and I'd start to feel better then, both physically and emotionally, a bit more stable. But saying that, I did get home and end up like, I don't know, just feeling a bit shit, but not as bad as earlier. And I don't know if it is just to do with the caffeine or if that's just amplified it in a way, because that sort of thing does happen, but not to that extent. Like I feel like it might look like that on the outside most of the time from looking in, like the way I react, but that was pretty intense. Like it felt more intense than it normally does. Not that it ever feels good when things like that happen, but yeah. I don't even know how often it happens. It's like maybe a few times a month. I don't want to go as far to say it's once a week, but I'd say it's maybe like 3 or 4 times a month, but spread but not necessarily once a week. So it could I could have a couple in one week and then like none for ages, and then a couple in the last weeks of the month. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with me. I know that there's something wrong with acting in the way that I act when that happens. I know that that's not normal. I know that most people don't do that, and most people are able to deal with their emotions a little bit better than I am. And it does make me think like maybe there's something up with my brain, but I don't think I feel comfortable saying that of because of the knowledge that I have about the paracetamol containing caffeine, and I feel like that the caffeine overdose can induce a lot of the symptoms that I was experiencing earlier, like anxiety, like chest pain, like feeling sick, like I don't know, numbness, hallucination, but the thing that makes me wonder about that is that by the time, it was only 120 milligrams in the morning, and I don't even know, is that a lot of coffee? Is that a lot of caffeine? Not coffee. Is that a lot of caffeine to have in one go? I don't know. And then by dinner it would have been like 240, but I feel like some of the other stuff had worn out of my system. But yeah, I know that I have problems with caffeine because I had caffeine overdose last Friday, which was a more intense caffeine overdose, like it with the physical side of it. I felt extremely sick with that one. But yeah, this one was more emotional. But anyway, I'll be okay. I think that's it. Yeah, right, thanks for watching.